Something in society has moved. I think the trigger was the Russia-China agreements. This is what changed, because the idea that nations such as Russia and China were going to suddenly move together with the ideas which are typical to the United States in the way they look at it, that this was the change. Okay, we want to do this. We're going to go from the Arctic Ocean down, and we're going to reunite the planet around the Pacific orientation.
Since Putin and Medvedev made their earth-shaking announcement 2 weeks ago, the winds of history have changed. As LaRouche emphatically declared this week, in the aftermath of his own national presidential address, the receptivity of the American intelligentsia to his ideas in economics has suddenly cracked wide open, not to mention among the general citizenry itself. The necessary precondition for a return to Hamiltonian credit, the Glass-Steagall Act, has clearly become a juggernaut which has the potential of becoming unstoppable as its support in Congress continues to grow, as very significant voices internationally also join this chorus of support, such as former French Finance Minister Michel Rocard, and as it has passed from mouth to mouth of the protest groups now occupying the streets of almost every American city. As you saw yesterday, Walter Jones, initial co-sponsor of the Glass-Steagall bill, called on this website for American citizens to put increased pressure on members of Congress to move on H.R. 1489.
We must reinstate Glass-Steagall, and I want to thank my good friend, and she is my good friend, Marcy Kaptur from Ohio, for taking the lead, and I'm glad that I am one of the Republicans to join Marcy Kaptur. And there again, this is another issue, just like Afghanistan. The people watching this show should pick up the phone and call their member of Congress and tell him or her, you need to get on the bill to reinstate Glass-Steagall. I think you're right in your introduction that the interest is growing because we realize...
At the same time, Marcy Kaptur, the bill's originator, made a passionate speech on the floor of the Congress, citing the surge in protesters taking to the streets across the country and urging immediate action on Glass-Steagall. What seemed, even weeks ago, to be a virtually silent American citizenry is now loudly announcing that they declare the current system dead, and that it's time for something new, even if it's not clear to many what that something is. Trade unions across the country are endorsing the protest movement, marching in solidarity with these young people. Members of Congress from both parties are actively fighting for Glass-Steagall and openly denouncing both Wall Street and Barack Obama. And Obama himself was subjected to a 70-minute roast on live television from suddenly emboldened members of the National Press Corps.
Are you worried about your own powers of persuasion and maybe that the American public's not listening to you anymore?
Well, no,
There's this movement, Occupy Wall Street, which has spread from Wall Street to other cities. They clearly don't think that you or Republicans have done enough, that you're in fact part of the problem. Are you following this movement, and what would you say to its people that are attracted to it?
One of the reasons why so many of the people at the Occupy Wall Street protests are so angry is because, as you say, so many people on Wall Street did not follow the rules. But your administration hasn't really been very aggressive in prosecuting. In fact, I don't think any Wall Street executives have gone to jail despite the rampant corruption and malfeasance that did take place. So I was wondering if you'd comment on that. And then just as a separate question, as you're watching the Solyndra and Fast and Furious controversies play out, I'm wondering if it gives you any pause about any of the decision-making going on in your administration.
It seems like the dam has broken. But ask yourself, what has changed? Where did the crack in the dam originate? Where was the decision made to unleash these revolutionary forces of history?
something in society has moved.
As LaRouche said, something fundamental at the very core of society has moved, has shifted. That something was the decision from two of the three greatest powers on this planet to pursue decisively an aggressive strategy to create a post-British Empire world, modeling their programs, ironically, on the types of ideas historically associated with the United States. If you step back and look at today through the lens of world history, or at least the last millennia or two, you'll see that we're at a point which is only comparable in its effects to Christopher Columbus's discovery of the New World. The globe is tilting now towards the Pacific Ocean, not gravitationally, but geopolitically. In the same way that Columbus's expedition across the Atlantic made the Mediterranean world old news, and even forced the Venetian Empire to move its headquarters to what at that time seemed like the edge of the world. Now, the transatlantic system, which has dominated the world for so long, has become old news. And what now seems to most like the middle of nowhere has become the center of the universe. This geopolitical shift did not somehow just happen yesterday. It has in fact been in progress since at least Abraham Lincoln, when the United States became a Pacific nation. But the decision to assert the strong political power of a Russia-China economic partnership, and the announcement by Putin and Medvedev that the days of British manipulation and games were over, that was the clincher, which signaled to the world that now the time has come. The direction of the wind has now shifted, and the word is in the air that we've reached a moment of great change. People can smell at least the possibility of a future. And with the steps which other nations such as Russia and China have now taken, representing in an ironic way the reassertion of what is typically a characteristically American principle by nations other than the United States, all of a sudden we find Americans wishing to be American again. So this is where we locate the pressure of history, which has now become an unspoken force, motivating a revolutionary upheaval inside the United States. Take a minute to look across the planet and observe the sparks of optimism which have been ignited just over the past 2 weeks.
Over just the past few weeks, sparks of optimism for the future of mankind have been represented across the globe by many nations. A crucial player in that has been Russia, whose Federal Space Agency head Vladimir Popovkin announced in August that the construction of the Vostochny Cosmodrome, the Space Launch Center and accompanying Science City, was on target to be completed by 2018. Then, on September 15th, the heads of the Russian and Chinese nuclear agencies met to announce numerous bilateral agreements, including the initiation of the Russian-led construction of Power Blocks 3 and 4 of the Tianwan nuclear power plant, China's largest. Also agreed upon was for Russia to supply the Chinese with radioisotope thermal generators for China's space program. Then, a week later, on September 23rd, Prime Minister Vladimir Putin chaired the second annual International Arctic Forum, which was attended by over 450 representatives of nations throughout the Arctic and related regions. During this forum, Putin declared that Arctic shipping routes along Russia's northern coast would soon rival the Suez Canal as a quicker trade link from Europe to Asia. Exemplifying this was the Sanko Odyssey, the world's largest ice-class bulk carrier, which arrived in China also on September 23rd. Only the second commercial bulk carrier to travel through the icy northern sea route, the trip was completed in 23 days, half the time it would have taken to sail through the Suez Canal. Then, just days later, on September 27th, the Radioastron mission made the exciting announcement that the Spectra-R telescope received its first piece of data from the light of Cassiopeia A. This is the telescope which, when it becomes fully operational later this month, will complete the establishment of a global network of satellites whose functional lens size will be 30 times the diameter of the Earth, and will generate images 1,000 times the resolution of the Hubble telescope. The next day, in Argentina, President Fernández de Kirchner inaugurated the Atucha II nuclear power plant. The opening of the nation's third nuclear power plant was celebrated as a further example of Argentina's commitment to the defense of its sovereignty and the creative powers of its citizens as the driver of its economic future. Then, on September 29th, China successfully launched Tiangong-1, which will soon rendezvous and dock with Shenzhou 8, completing a crucial step in China's goal to put a man on the moon. And it was just announced days ago at the International Astronautical Congress that Shenzhou will be ready to launch next month, and the docking test will take place within 2 days of that launch. Also announced days ago was Finland's choice for a site for its latest nuclear power plant. The Finnish can take pride in the fact that they are the first nation to approve a new nuclear power plant site after the British-generated Fukushima hysteria from this past spring. Also in the realm of Arctic nuclear, Sergei Kirienko, head of Rosatom, confirmed recently that the Kola NPP-2 nuclear plant on the Kola Peninsula will be funded and built by 2020. And just yesterday, the Argentines celebrated the inauguration of the building to house its recently formed Ministry of Science and Technology. The new building, which is a collaboration with the Max Planck Institute of Germany, will house the ministry, as well as several research institutions and working laboratories. Created in 2007 under President Nestor Kirchner, this is the first time that the ministry has had a facility befitting its mission. And it is fitting that at a session of the International Astronautical Congress, which is taking place now in South Africa, that the obvious absence of the United States in these global developments, but also the necessity of the United States to join in, was expressed by South African Science and Technology Minister Naledi Pandor in a beautifully hopeful manner. We all think about Eleanor Roosevelt and the contributions she made. She was a powerful woman, and we never forget that we wouldn't have the Universal Charter of Human Rights if not for her. So we draw inspiration. And that's what we would like America to go back to be the country that inspires us.
So it's clear that the weight of human history is tending to lean in the direction of what LaRouche has defined as the Great Pacific Orientation, in counterposition to the failing transatlantic system which is currently making itself a thing of the past. However, what these nations need for this geopolitical revolution to succeed is for the United States to reciprocate this motion, to oust Barack Obama, and to finally take the steps which LaRouche has prescribed to bring to fruition what we as a young nation with our founding began.
We got a germ of the idea of a world without an empire.
The transfer of world power from the hands of the empire into the hands of a cooperative constellation of sovereign nations, collaborating in the development of the planet in unified cause for the common aims of mankind.
We have to look downwards from the North Pole, look down across the Pacific, see the west coast of North America and the east coast of China and Russia are going to become the great center of economic development on the planet for some time to come. That's the direction of things. I don't think nothing is really secured yet, but what we are seeing in signs of movement toward what will work or would work is now here. Right. We've entered into a completely new way of thinking about mankind as well as about the prospects of the planet.